This week it was International Men's Day, which is the 19th of November, and I'd love to tell you that I came up with the idea for this video because of that, but actually it was just a fluke. So happy International Men's Day to all the men watching this. It is mostly men who watch this channel, actually, just as a side note. Over 90% for every video and for the channel as a whole. I could make a video about how I feel about the idea of having a day to celebrate certain people or certain groups of people. To be honest, I don't really feel strongly one way or the other about it, so let's just leave that. But today the subject is more about how men are portrayed in media, particularly fathers, as compared to mothers. I suppose this would be a good video for Father's Day, but anyway, I'm making it today. I started thinking about this because I've been watching Peppa Pig with my daughter. It's a very popular children's show. It was made starting, I think, over 10 years ago now, so it's been around for a while. It certainly wasn't around when I was a child, but it's very popular among this generation of children and toddlers and babies. And I'd say the real star of the show, and not in a literal sense, but in the spirit of the thing, the real star of the show is Daddy Pig. Peppa Pig's father is, I think a lot of adults who watch the show would agree that Daddy Pig is the best character, or maybe the best main character. And this despite being completely incompetent. He's not quite a Homer Simpson or a Peter Griffin type of figure. He's not quite a buffoon, but he definitely falls into the category of well-meaning but idiotic, incompetent father. He's characterized by being overconfident in pretty much everything he does, so he will often try to present solutions to whatever a particular scenario is. He will put himself forward as an expert on the subject. He will, praise his own abilities in this particular field that he's about to sort of try to help in. And then that's just the setup, and the joke is that he does badly. He's the sort of Dunning-Kruger effect character where he does badly at everything he tries, but he believes he's going to do well. And even when he does badly, he's constantly surprised by it. This contrasts with Mummy Pig, who's kind of the other end of the Dunning-Kruger spectrum, where she often doubts her own abilities in something. She'll start off by saying, "I'm not an expert, but," and then she'll make a suggestion for something that often goes much better than Daddy Pig's suggestion. It's a classic comedic pairing of the buffoon and the straight man, with the wife playing the kind of the straight role. She doesn't get many jokes, though. I don't think anyone would say that Mummy Pig is their favourite character. And it just got me thinking about these male and female archetypes that we see in TV shows, and I tried to remember when was the last time I saw a female character who was portrayed as incompetent in anything, especially a mother figure. I couldn't think of anything. The only incompetent female character I could think of was from a British TV show from more than 10 years ago called The IT Crowd, where it's a show about an IT department in an office building, and the department comprises two male IT support guys and a woman who knows absolutely nothing about computers, but who is assigned to work in the department. So this character, Jen, the woman, she is comedically under-skilled at this job. She's competent in other areas. She's much more socially competent than the male characters, so it kind of balances out a little bit, but she doesn't know anything about computers, and it's often a subject of comedy. They make jokes about it, and it's at her expense, and maybe it's just a matter of opinion, but I think it's done well and it is funny, but it's something you don't see that often. When I try to imagine a female version of Daddy Pig, a character like that who's overconfident in their own abilities, who constantly messes up pretty much everything they do, it doesn't sit right. It doesn't feel funny when it's a woman who's the sort of the butt of the joke. You can have a character like Jen who is very educated in a certain area, but it needs to be balanced out with competencies in other areas. Coming away from thinking about television, it's often noted that in adverts, in advertisements, the man of the family is often portrayed as the one who doesn't know how to do household work. It's the father figure who expresses confusion about various household activities, or who has difficulties with the chores. And I've seen many people who express distaste at this trope of media, of having an incompetent father, or just a man in general. It's not like that's the only way that men are portrayed in media, far from it, but that is one of the common ways that men are portrayed, that you very rarely see women portrayed in the same role. And some people point to this as an evidence for a misandrist society. That is the male version of misogyny. It's misandrist. And I can kind of see the argument if the intent of the media was to point at men and to point at fathers and say all men are like this, or all fathers are like this, or even most, or just making a stereotype out of that, it's not ethical to portray men in that way. It's it's stereotyping, and it's kind of mean-spirited in a way that we would never see women treated in that way. And yet I think there's something missing from that argument, where when something is portrayed for comedic purposes, you can either see a scenario as a reflection of your real life. You see something on television and it looks familiar to you, and there can be comedy found in that. But I think more often, and perhaps that's the case in what we're talking about now, you're seeing something surprising. You're seeing a subversion of what you would expect in real life, and that is how the comedy is derived. You're seeing an inversion of what you would normally expect to see, and that is why it's funny. So when you see Daddy Pig knocking a hole in the wall while he's trying to hang a picture, it's not funny because you know men who have done that, or who are bad at DIY. It's funny because you're expecting him to do well, and he didn't. What's kind of interesting to me is the fact that it's a children's show, and a show that's accessible even for children like my daughter, who are not even verbal yet. She has very limited experience of the real world, and so the things that she's seeing on TV, they don't have that level of subversion that adult entertainment has. I don't mean adult entertainment in a rude way. I mean it's for adults. When you're producing media for older audiences, you can play with their expectations like that, because they have these notions that you can expect your audience to have certain notions about life and about characters, and you expect them to have a certain framework of archetypes and stereotypes in their mind, and you can play off that. But with babies and toddlers, they don't have that many experiences to draw on, and so the characterization of Daddy Pig probably more familiar to them than any other father aside from their own. So my daughter, one of the few words that she does know is dada. She says dada a lot, and she knows who her daddy is. She points at her dad and says dada. That aside from him, the only other father who she's familiar with is Daddy Pig from Peppa Pig. I'm sure that when she grows up a bit, that her idea of fatherhood will be much more formed by her own father than it is by television. And yet I do think that we have to look at children's media in a slightly different way to how we see media made for adults, just for that reason. Because the show can't play off the stereotypes that are already existing in her mind. The show is forming the stereotypes that she will later see subverted or reinforced. To look at this problem from a different angle, maybe it's better to invert it, and instead of thinking of media's portrayal of men and fathers as the special case, maybe that is the default way of portraying people, and we should look at why female characters are shielded from this kind of treatment. When I tried that thought experiment I described earlier, where I tried to imagine Mummy Pig being portrayed as incompetent and failing at all the things that she tried to do to help Peppa Pig. And when I thought about scenarios like that, when I remembered bits from the show where Daddy Pig failed to do what he set out to, and I imagined it was Mummy Pig doing it instead, it just felt more mean-spirited somehow. The idea of having a fumbling buffoon of a Mummy Pig just, it seemed mean. I don't think a character like that would be likable. Rather than being able to forgive her for her inadequacies, I'd kind of be thinking like, oh, isn't she being kind of a bad mother? Or like, isn't she supposed to be looking after Peppa? Like, why is she doing everything wrong? It would just be kind of alarming almost that a mother character would be buffoonish in that way. And then I started to think of this whole situation backwards, where male characters are allowed to be incompetent, and that is why it's funny, is because we can forgive them for messing up all the time. It's like, you can roll your eyes and laugh when a man makes a mistake, but when a woman makes a mistake or a mother makes a mistake, it's kind of quite worrying, or the reaction is more judgmental and not humorous at all. It reminds me of a bit from the film Marriage Story. What is that actress's name? The woman from Jurassic Park. She plays a divorce lawyer in Marriage Story, which is a film about a divorce, and she tells Scarlett Johansson's character that men are forgiven for their mistakes, and we actually love them for their misbehavior, which is kind of true in the case of Daddy Pig. I don't know if it really holds true for real life men and their real life failures.
We can accept an imperfect dad. Let's face it, the idea of a good father was only invented like 30 years ago. Before that, fathers were expected to be silent and absent and unreliable and selfish. And we can all say we want them to be different. But on some basic level, we accept them. We love them for their fallibilities, but people absolutely don't accept those same failings in mothers.
But when I looked at it that way, it felt like the opposite. Like maybe this trend is more misogynistic than it is misandristic. Is that the word? Misandrist. Either way, I know I've been talking about this for 26 minutes now. I'm going to edit it down so it won't be that long for you, but it maybe sounds like I'm a lot more worried about this trend or about this trope than I am. I'm actually not that concerned about it, and I do enjoy Peppa Pig as a TV show, and I will continue to watch it with my daughter. I'm keeping an eye on it because I do want to know what stereotypes and tropes and stories this show is teaching my daughter, but I'm paying attention. But I'm not yet fully concerned. I think it's a good, entertaining show, and like I said, Daddy Pig is my favourite character, and I don't think he's being treated that badly, and I don't think Mummy Pig's being treated that badly either. I'm sure if you have watched the show, you have your own opinions on it, and if you haven't, I'm sure you have an opinion about father characters in TV in general. So I'm very interested to hear from you about that. If you'd like to leave a comment, I read all of my comments, old and new, no matter how long ago the video was made. I still get comments on all videos that I read. I'm sorry I can't reply to all of you, but if you ask me a question, I'll try to answer it. But until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.